Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is Omega. Today, Deep Under the Sky. This is my first impressions of an action puzzler by developers Richard Edwards and Colin Northway. The former was behind the design, art, and music of the game, and the latter performed the design and programming of the game. The game is published under Northway Games, who you might remember from the fantastically popular game, Incredipede, which actually had some interesting mechanics going for it, but it didn't really do too well on Steam. Probably didn't get the press it really needed, even though Total Biscuit did a WTF of it. But, little known game, kinda, as I recall, it was a game where you moved around and tried to build an Incredipede by picking up different parts of the environment to evolve yourself. This game is a little bit different. In Deep Under the Sky, you are a jellyfish-like creature, and your goal is to blow up the things. Yes, the game tends to bill itself as this very fun interaction between physics effects and jellyfish thingies, and that's about it. Contains about 80 levels, spread out over the course of 4 different map zones, I suppose you could call them. Each one has about 20 maps, and your basic goal is to make your little jellyfish get all of the orb thingies. That's the best way I can describe it, so we were starting right here. Now, the game, as you'll see right here, if we give it just a moment to load in here. There we go, finally got the game to work. So, let's take a look. So as you can see from the outset here, the game has a very, very interesting art style. It certainly fits the alien motif that the game is going for, and it's actually kind of pretty in some aspects. The game has a ton of particle effects, a lot of physics effects. It touts itself as having a great abundance of those, and your basic goal is to blow up the orbs, as I mentioned before. You do this by launching little squid or jellyfish-like, I guess, projectiles out of your other squid jellyfish thingy, and attempting to blow up the orbs by either touching them or exploding near them. Now, the entire game, as you might notice, is played with only one key, that being spacebar, which is a little bit interesting. It kind of changes the strategy of the game, so it's not so much about your actual ability to figure out the puzzles, it's more about your timing, and timing ends up having to be pretty precise in order for you to successfully do anything in this game. And as you can see here, I am miserably failing at it. So, what do? You launch your little squid jellyfish thingy out, you pick a direction, you fire off, and you attempt to hit things by interacting with different physics objects in the environment. It's pretty simple. It's not a very complex game, but as I said before, it's a lot about timing, and it requires that you actually have a little bit of idea of where you're directing your jellyfish and where it's going to go with regard to momentum, because momentum is also very important. When you fire out your jellyfish in certain directions, it will often take it a moment to correct its direction because of the momentum of the direction it's currently going in, and as a result of that, I've done it again, haven't I? You will have to keep in mind the amount of momentum that you're going to have, otherwise you will not be able to correct your course in time, like right there. I didn't account for momentum, and I launched off too late. And there I just launched off too late as well after bouncing up, which caused me to immediately go up. You have to track the arrow that you have, because that will immediately tell you what direction the jellyfish will be forced into upon clicking spacebar. So, you kind of have to keep that in mind. Now, as we're seeing here, it's a little bit harder than you would think it would be. Now, those purple things that you're seeing are pretty much just basic obstacles which serve virtually no purpose. They're kind of just there as obstacles, but they prevent your jellyfish from getting to its desired destination in some areas, so you have to plow through them, and it makes you have to judge your timing a little bit better. Now let's see if we can get down to the one below. So you might be noticing that the game doesn't have a lot to it, and you would be right, the game does actually not have that much to it. Well, it does have this very nice polished art style and these very nice polished physics effects. The game itself is pretty basic, and that should be pretty obvious to anyone who sees immediately that this game only has a single button. Now, there's one more that we have to get. Just fire straight down. There we go. So when you get to the end of the level, your jellyfish will be free and all this stuff will go dark, and then you can float away, which also requires pressing spacebar. This is actually kind of cool in some ways, because while you can dynamically control how fast the jellyfish gets off screen, and you can actually just let it float down if you want to just stay on the screen for a minute, it's kind of cool just to see the movement of that very uniquely drawn jellyfish creature. Now, the music of this game. The game touts itself as having a trippy, chilled-out soundtrack. Now, the game does have what I would call, I guess, a trippy soundtrack, but, and I suppose I'd also call it chill out, if you want to define it as such. I'm not one to use those parlance. But the problem that I take with it is that the music very obviously loops, and I'm gonna see if I can give you enough tracks for a minute, enough time with the music in order to allow you to hear that. So I'm gonna shut up for a second. Now, it's not incredibly easy to notice. You might have noticed that it skipped there briefly one time, but it's definitely there, and if you have the game at higher volumes, it's really noticeable. The other problem I should mention, I didn't even go into this, the options menu. I didn't really bring it up because there isn't much of one. You do have music and sound sliders, which is okay, but, and you might be able to notice this, they go in bars. There's no fine-tuning you can do with the music or sound effects, and even at this volume, it's still really loud coming through my headset. Now, hopefully, you probably won't hear that on the video, but it is actually incredibly loud. But you do have a lot of little physics options that you can choose, which is okay, I guess, but there's also no native resolution option. Luckily, it kind of conforms to whatever the resolution of your monitor is, and it constrains your cursor, which is pretty good. I'm not having any problems with that. But it's still kind of annoying to have to see that in a game like this. Just disappointing. I know I didn't mention it for Detective Grimoire, I kind of gave that game a pass, but I think for a game like this with as much art as it has, I don't know, some more effects would be nice. At least a resolution option. Come on, game devs, you gotta give resolution options. We can't go without resolution options. It's just, you kinda need it. So, what else can I say about the game? Well, not much. Admittedly, they're just, like I said before, there isn't much to it. These environments have pretty much been consistent throughout the entire thing. They're these green, weird, otherworldly designs, which is to be expected. And they change into like purple and red and blue otherworldly designs when you get into the later stages of the levels, I'm sure. But the game itself doesn't really introduce many new mechanics upon completion of a level. And as it stands right now, just pressing spacebar is kind of boring. I'm not, you know, massively enjoying myself doing this. Now, this is a game that if you want to just, you know, have some pretty visuals for a bit, you know, just chill out, listen to some music for a second, and feel like you maybe accomplished a little bit, got some levels in, this is probably a good little coffee time break. It's not good for much else. Which is, I think that's kind of what the dev was going for. I mean, if you look at it, it's not a game that offers a whole lot of complexity, and the dev doesn't really bill it as a game that would have that much complexity. So I think it did successfully achieve what it set out to do. I just don't think that you should be expecting anything besides what it is. Because it's not. It is a simple not platformer. I always want to call it a platformer. It's a simple puzzler game with some pretty simple mechanics and some pretty nice art. And that's about it. Let's see if I can finish this level and then we'll wrap it up. Alright. Now, the other thing I should mention about the music, which I actually neglected to, and this is kind of worth mentioning because it is a nice little feature, the music actually dynamically changes, as you might have heard, from after you complete different objectives. So after you blow up those orbs, or after you find a star or anything like that, the music will change to incorporate some new sounds. And it's kind of nice. But the problem is that, again, in kind of the same vein as the looping that the game soundtrack goes through, the noises that you do get which come on are not exactly different. They're pretty much ubiquitous. So whenever you break certain orbs, or you break a certain number of orbs rather, or you get a star or anything, the music changes accordingly, and it doesn't really ever stray from the current sound that's on right now. So that's kind of upsetting, I guess, if you actually like the soundtrack. Personally, I'm not a big fan. I don't really like this asynchronous, otherworldly style. I get what they're getting at with it, but it's not my thing. If it is your thing, well, great. I'm sure you'll love it then. I just don't happen to. Alright. Now, how do I get these little buggers over here? Game. Up. Oh, I almost. And the game does have a little edge of fulfillment when you figure out some of its more challenging puzzles like this, because there are certain methods of getting certain orbs that kind of make you think a little bit, and then it's not just about your timing. But a lot of the time, it's just about timing. Like right here. This is going to be a lot about timing. To make sure I get the momentum right, and boom! Okay, I hit it. Am I done? Yep, I'm done. Cool. Alright, so we beat the level. So that was mission 20 of chapter 1, which means I'm actually done with this chapter, I believe. And can move on to the next one. Yep. So let's see if they innovate a little bit in chapter 2 before we do anything. Ooh, what is this? This is interesting. I haven't seen one of these little introductory bits. I guess I'm just supposed to keep floating. Let's see about this. Just keep floating. Just keep floating. Oh, okay. I see. So we're trying to make it over to the next section by avoiding the high winds. That's kind of clever. That's kind of clever. Again, the game does use physics interactions to its benefit, which is nice. Whoa, jeez. It's kind of cute. It's very alien, though. Very odd. Oh, come on. We're almost there. Come on, little guy. Let's do it. No. Let's dodge the super high velocity winds. Just stick with the normal velocity winds. Alright, come on. Yeah, get off screen. There we go. Alright, we're through. Yeah. Alright. So that's nice. A little transition thing. Alright, so we got a new mechanic. That turns us into a ball, which will not immediately die. Ooh, that's nice. This is fun. Yeah, this is a nice mechanic. I'm kind of sad that they waited this long to implement this mechanic. They waited until another sector to implement this mechanic. But based on this is probably going to be the mechanic for the entire level set. That seems to be, or the chapter rather, that seems to be the trend. There will have one unique mechanic for each chapter, and then they kind of just abuse the hell out of that one mechanic and don't really use much else. Alright then. So this is Deep Under the Sky. If it seems like something you'd be interested in, you can pick it up currently for about $8 on Steam. I believe that deal is running until the 29th? Yes, I believe it's running until the 29th. After that, it's going to be about $10, or your regional equivalent. It's $10 US. And my name's been Omega. See you next time.